You ever been to a hotel and they've got like 3 elevators in the lobby? They should have one big one. Why don't they just make the whole plane out of the airplane food? What is the deal? You ever try to shake up a salad in a container to mix in the dressing? Most of the dressing just gets in the lid. What am I supposed to eat the lid now? Boy, I fucking hate my stupid bitch wife. The other day she says, "What do you want for dinner?" And I told her, "I want you to take the kids and get out of my life so I can go back to fucking whores."
Oh, welcome to the Ghosts and Flowers podcast. My name is Harrison Maines.
My name's Amy Goodall.
That's right. And today we are going to be reviewing some more albums at long last. And then talking about the reviews that were written about them by the man, the myth, the legend, Brent DiCrescenzo.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we do around here.
Yeah.
God, nothing else to say about that. Why don't we just jump? Why don't we just... Yeah.
Dude,
Sorry,
dude. Yeah. Harrison, your charisma is just insane.
I know,
you just come up with this shit like on the spot.
I just come to life when I
given
a
a microphone.
Yes, that's my secret special talent.
You have a natural talent for podcasting.
I certainly do. So I think we should just jump right into it. The albums that we're going to be talking about today are Beaucoup.
I think it's Beaucoup.
Beaucoup Fish by Underworld. And The Fragile by Nine Inch Nails. So let's talk a little bit about Underworld.
All right.
Why don't we? What's your relationship with the music of Underworld?
I have never really been a huge fan, not because I don't like them or anything, but I was introduced to them I guess on Rate Your Music. I mean, like in 2019 or something, me and Buffalo Staple were together hanging out, and we both listened to I think this album, Beaucoup Fish. Dude, I'm not used to saying this shit out loud. That one, and then Second Toughest in the Infants, if I remember right. I remember him hating Dub No Bass with My Head Man, which is like one of my favorites of theirs. I think that album is like really good, really sexy ass album.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's how it went. My memory might be failing me, but I think we both listened to it, or it was just me. I don't know. But then after I just like had that little surface level dive into their stuff, I came back to their stuff like years later. I think probably just in preparation for this podcast. I revisited the albums that I had heard before. I listened to a few new albums of theirs. I found out their live album Everything Everything is really solid. That's my history with them. What about you?
I have no history with Underworld. I did not know who they were until you got excited about the idea of reviewing this album, and that's it.
Yeah, well, I think part of the reason why I wanted to do this album is because, I don't know, I had a hunch that I would like it better if I came back to it, but also, I think their stuff is very bright and progressive and melodic, and it's very easy to just kind of get into your head, and it's a very short, digestible album, relatively short, so I thought it would be
how long is it?
It's probably like 40 minutes, I don't know.
Okay.
But that's like on the shorter side. That's like a normal length, whereas The Fragile is not a normal length.
Fragile is a fucking beast of an album.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was just excited to like listen to some house music, I guess.
Sure.
And you know how I feel about like UK house from the 90s.
Yeah. Pump up the jam.
Yeah. Those sexy English voices get me in Underworld's material,
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to just hop right into how we feel about this record? Actually, I will say, just generally something I've noticed about their music is I think that they're capable of just making really strong and emotive beats and instrumentals, like for sure. But there is something frustrating to me about just the way that they arrange individual songs sometimes, records sometimes. Like, the flow of their records can just feel off and awkward, and I often wonder whether they're even, like, actively considering these things. It's really weird with them because I do kind of feel like they make somewhat arbitrary decisions as far as that goes. What I'll say about their other material that I've heard is that I think that sometimes in an individual song I will feel like a transition was awkward, or like the specific timbre of an instrument is just slightly not right, or something like that, and it just bothers me so much because the song should be amazing. Like, the way it's constructed is great. I want to love it. But I just don't feel that way. Like, especially with Second Toughest and the Infants, that happens. And I just picked this album at work and we heard it and I was like, fuck, like, if the second song on that album, like, the second half is so, like, mysterious and interesting, and it's such a nice atmosphere, but the first part is just like amen breaks, and it's like, it just feels completely removed from that, and it's like, fuck. Just things like that. But I do think that with this album, it's more of just the flow of all the tracks. I think you could isolate almost every song on this album and it's a great track. Like, for the most part, I think Kittens is my least favorite song on here. I just find it to be the least interesting, but yeah, that's how I feel, very broadly speaking. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, this album, I mean, when I listened to it and I was taking in the lyrics, I felt like there was I felt that there was a conceptual part to it, you know? Like, it felt like maybe it was just the cover and the title, but it felt very much like there, you know, it was like an underwater kind of album. You know what I mean?
No, but
No?
good for you, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's never been what I've, like, thought about when listening. I just think of, like, nightlife, like UK club scene type shit, like sweaty bodies dancing up next to each other. Like, I don't think of that.
I was coming at it from a more, you know, I'm thinking about it more in terms of like IDM, or like I imagine, like, the scenario for me listening to electronic music is just like sitting down with headphones in a dark room alone.
I mean, same.
So, but I picked up. I mean, it's a very nocturnal album.
Yeah, totally.
There's a lot of, I think what it was is that there are a lot of references in the lyrics to salt, like salt and saltiness, and that made me think of, like, you know, the ocean. You know what I mean? Am I blowing your mind?
You know, I never noticed that before, but now, like, certain lyrics are like kind of coming back to me a little bit, and I'm like, maybe. Yeah, okay, well, that's not something I was noticing. Actually, one thing I'll say about this record is, like, and Brent will bring this up, I did, like, you know, kind of read the review beforehand.
Sure.
Sorry.
We like to be prepared.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
just
you know,
just a tad.
Yeah, right. I didn't sit there thinking about specifically what I would say, but I did go over it, and I want to say that I think this record is very, like, lyrically it feels intoxicated and very inarticulate, and, like, there are kind of, like, suggestions of themes, but nothing coherent. Here's
the thing, though. The first song is, like, 100% about cum, right? Like,
really?
I can't. And I was like, I know that we have tried so hard to avoid becoming the cum podcast.
Are you just making this up?
No, I just straight up, I put this album on the other day, and it was the first time that I sat down with the lyrics, and I opened up the lyrics to the first song, and I'm like, this is about cum. Like, it's like, and it's house music, so every song is kind of about, like, sexy fucking and dancing and yearning and doing drugs and cum. And the first song, I was reading the lyrics, and I was like, I mean, you know, it's about, like, getting sucked off, I think.
Do you remember any specific lyrics?
Oh, just like, it's all about just, like, going down and dripping and salty and, you know, like, pushing and pulling and.
Well, I'll say, like, when I listen to Cups, I mean, I'm more thinking about the instrumental than I'm thinking about the lyrics. I think
Sure.
the weird, like, spooky vocoder vocals in the first part of that song are, like, great. My ears always go to that. There are actually quite a few, like, kind of spooky moments on this record. I don't know if you caught that, but
Yeah.
I noted down just a few, like, really quick ones. Something like a mama. That bass is so, like, slick and sinister and kind of sly sounding, like
there are some delightful bass lines on
yeah,
this fucking thing.
yeah. Also, I don't know how well you remember Push Downstairs. I think it's either the second to last track on the album or it's like 3 from the last, but I don't know, just the way that it kind of moves and revolves, it just, like, feels really creepy, and I don't know why, but I love it when this album does that.
There's something about how, I mean, there's a lot of, there's, like, jazz influence on this album a little bit, like, with the chords, like, I feel like there's jazzy chords and a kind of swing, and it's very, but because it's so dark, and I know you're not gonna. It reminds me of Angelo Badalamenti.
Yeah,
He does a lot of the music for David Lynch movies. Rest in peace.
Yeah,
Angelo. But yeah, it gave me that kind of feel. It sounded, I mean, it's jazzy and kind of slick and sexy, but there's something a little bit sinister about it. You know what I mean?
Well, I've heard the Twin Peaks soundtrack. You did that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking about that, like, literally at all, but I mean, cool.
We do not talk about the albums at all before we record, by the way. So we come into these because we want to come in with, like, fresh thoughts and all this stuff, and then what ends up happening is that, like, one of us will say something and it will just be like we would have to go back and listen to the songs to actually kind of really understand the point.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're arguing a lot.
Yeah. Well, lyrically, I think there's a lot of room to pull away different things with this album because, again, it's like it's very scatterbrained and just not focused as far as that goes. So, like, I wasn't thinking about fucking Salt.
They mention salt in, like, multiple songs, and, like, this is the funny thing, like, a big like a funny difference between you and me is that you have taken, like, pages and pages of notes on both of these albums. I opened up the notes that I was taking on my phone, and it just says they say salty a lot. Underwater theme, come.
Holy fuck, that's awesome because, like, saltwater and cum.
Yeah,
salt is the connecting thread.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my notes look like after, like, one listen, so I feel you. Like, 1 or 2 listens, I'm like, salt? Yeah. Salt? As long as we're talking about, like, consistent things in the lyrics, one thing that I did notice is, like, so in a few tracks, specifically Jumbo, Moaner, and Skim. I'm gonna call it Skim.
I was calling it Skim.
Yeah. They mention different, like, structures that connect the city together, namely, like, the subway lines and telephone wires. And I think this is really smart. Bear with me while I explain this.
Okay.
So telephone wires are an image in Jumbo. I think that this song is about, like, phones connecting two people in a slightly long-distance relationship with each other, like, say, like, opposite sides of the city or something like that.
I was definitely picking up on the long-distance relationship theme in some of the lyrics.
It's a cute-ass song.
Yeah.
And then on Moaner, I love the lyrics on that song, just in general. But, yeah, on Moaner, it describes subways. It's like tunnels beneath the feet of the city, or it's like the feet in the streets above the subways and stuff like that. And then both of these images kind of show up in Skim a little bit too, and they're worded in almost the exact same way.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that just, like, that kind of makes me fixate on how, in some abstract sense, these internal structures where everyone meets, or, like, everyone's passing through the same place, are so full of like the color and life and like merging energies of different people. And you could think of that as being like the true core or heart of the city in a sense. And it's beautiful. And I think that when you're listening to a dance record, you want to be like kind of reminded of just those raw emotions and energies, because it's like a very physical record, and you want to feel like all of that is just flowing through your veins while you're listening to it. And
especially if you're in the club and you're listening to something like that.
Of course. But yeah, I don't know. I just like thinking about that, I guess. Yeah.
No, I totally, I see what you mean. It is, I mean, I feel like a lot of, a lot of dance music has this kind of, if there are lyrics, there's this theme of, you know, a lot of people coming together and sort of, you know, everybody's energy coming together into this big thing. And so to compare that to a whole city, I think is clever, and also, I don't know, it adds to the vibe of it being, you know, I mean, it's, I don't want to keep saying the same words, but it's like it's nocturnal, and it's kind of like, it's the energy of the night, it's the rhythm of the night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's cool how volume is used on this record. Like, I think everything is just so fucking loud and just relentless and boisterous and intrusive.
Yes.
And it, on a track like Moaner, say, it's like almost to the point where it's like menacing. It's just like fucking pounding at you. Like, it feels like the walls are just about to break open. It's just so fucking loud. That song, just like, to me, it sounds like a panic attack on a dance floor or something like that. Like, it's just fucking in overdrive.
It's very penetrating music.
Yeah. Of course, that song has like a really high tempo, so just automatically it's gonna do that a little bit. But the vocals are also this spoken word that just, it sounds like they're just trying to get out all their words as fast as possible, and it just feels frantic in a way that's really raw for me.
Frantic, tick, tick, tick.
Oh my god, it's haunting my subconscious. Ever since we did that episode, Saint Anger is just showing up everywhere. Do you feel like we've gotten 1 million copies of Saint Anger since that?
I do. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen so many fucking copies of Saint Anger. Like, where we work, it's ugh.
It's what do they call it? Confirmation bias?
Yeah, true. True, but I don't think it's a coincidence.
No.
But yeah, I imagine this song is what snorting coke would feel like, even though I've never done that, so I can neither confirm nor deny.
Sure. You're kind of a square.
Wait, what?
You're not. You're not out there. You know, doing the hard drugs and partying like the rest of us adults.
It's highly addictive. I'm interested, and it's illegal.
Ooh.
Someone could be listening to them.
I think if anyone is listening to this podcast, it's the feds. So.
Probably. And like, again, like 2.5 people who still care about my YouTube channel for some reason.
Yeah.
I'll get like one comment like every 2 weeks or so on like my Aphex Twin Best Worst, and I'm like, oh, hey, dude.
Yeah. More content on the way.
Yeah. I also feel like this a little bit in Shudder King of Snake.
Yeah, I like that song.
Yeah. I think the progression on that song is just insane. I like how the vocal snippets on that song just sound like they're spazzing out. And I think the screeching sounds in like the last part of the song, like like that shit is so nice. It's like the last actually new instrumental development, and it's such a high. I don't know why. It's just like the perfect little touch to that beat. Yeah, I just feel this very powerful, like, ascending energy with that song. It's like a lot.
Yeah, you and I kind of grew up in a time where EDM was like huge on the charts, and so I feel like, if, at least for me, I'm like, before I started actually diving into electronic music, I had this idea of it that was based on things that people were making to try to, you know, sell records and like to as many people as possible. So when I started listening to like, you know, like smaller artists than, Bass Nectar or whatever.
Skrillex?
Yeah. When I started like going back into like the history of electronic music, the amount of weird sounds that would turn up, I'd be like, oh, this is sick.
I mean, yeah. Like, I remember you talking on an earlier episode about your first listen to Burial's Untrue, and you being like, what the fuck?
What the fuck?
Like, electronic music can be like this?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that I'm sort of letting you lead the way in this conversation, because it's sometimes hard for me to it's hard for my thoughts on electronic music to, I can't articulate them as complexly as other kinds of music, because there's a lot of patience involved in really sort of trying to unravel tracks like this, because they're very repetitive. They're very built on grooves and so, but Untrue is an album I could talk about for like 8 hours straight.
Yeah. Well, I love when albums get, like, electronic albums get abstract enough to the point where you can't tell what instrument they're using, or like you forget to even think about it as an instrument. I just love abstract sounds like that, where you're just thinking of colors and memories and like weird imagery and shit, and you just like forget that it's like an organ or a guitar or whatever. But I think on this album that's like not the case. But I do know what you mean about electronic music being sonically so diverse, actually.
I mean, that's what you were saying. That's sort of what I love about an artist like Sophie, is that she would take certain sounds, and all her sounds were electronically synthesized. She didn't really, people said that her music sounded like pots and pans, but it's like they weren't samples. She would just take like sounds and then fuck with them to the point where they just sounded so alien.
Yeah.
And that kind of shit is so mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. To
be able to take maybe a familiar sound and turn it into something so strange and unrecognizable, but to apply it to the context of a song in a way that really works. I think that shit is so cool.
So cool.
So cool.
That's so cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, rest in peace, Sophie.
Oh my god, yeah, that was
horrible.
That was one of the fucking biggest bummers of my whole life.
Yeah, of your whole life.
I was actually a wreck that day.
Aww. That sucks. Yeah. One thing that I think King of Snakes specifically is a good example of is just how, like I was talking about, individual songs in this album just know exactly what to do when. I think that in any given song, for the most part on this album, the next melody that comes in is exactly what the last melody needed to like boost it up, rather than to just come in and wash off of you. I think that makes me feel like there's an accumulated amount of energy or adrenaline when I'm listening to it again, instead of it just kind of coming in and then fading out.
The ideas build on each other.
Yeah, like it's becoming this great mass until I just feel insane and possessed by the beat. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Slave to the rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And in a song like this, where it has a high tempo and there's some like reverb and stuff, whatever, I feel like I just see this like chaotic motion blur in my head. It's like I love it. Yeah. It's sick. Do you remember the song? Like,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Fourth song, I think.
Yeah.
Third.
Yeah.
It's the fourth song.
I think if I heard like 2 seconds of it, it would come to me. But
right, I think it goes Cops, Push Upstairs, Jumbo, King of Snake.
Yeah.
Again though, track flow's weird. How do you feel about that point?
Well, I kind of lost my point when I was talking about the concept of the record, or as I saw it. But yeah, I didn't necessarily feel like there was, even though there are there's cohesion in the themes and in some of the sounds. I didn't really feel like it was the kind of album that flowed super just like naturally. It's, you know, and I do think that if you're making electronic music, if that's not the case, it's kind of just for lack of interest in doing that. Like, you know, fucking, it's not a Spangle record. You know, like those are just like, here's an experience, and then this album is more like, here's some songs.
Yeah. They don't give a shit. And like actually some days it feels annoying and some days it feels endearing how little fucks they give about that. Because I am the type of person who really values that stuff when I'm consuming art. Like, I love it when there feels like there's a lot of intentionality behind what they're doing and the decisions they're making feel very deliberate. But, you know, again, a mixed bag is fine. I just think that it makes it less, what am I trying to say? Cohesive, coherent. It feels less like a unity that I can just immediately think of and recognize in my mind conceptually. But it's fine. Again, I love so many songs on this album. So.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. It just, I did notice it because it's a genre where a lot of people do try very deliberately to, again, craft an experience that flows very naturally.
Yeah. I want to say quickly, Bruce Lee, I think, is a song that really plays to their strengths, just because...
There's some rapping on that track. Dude's spitting.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool song, even though it is so simple and repetitive. It's very tethered to just that simple guitar and drum lick. But even though I wouldn't exactly call it climactic in any way at all, it is just so loud and forceful and sure of itself and confident that somehow it just works. Like, Underworld are obviously well aware that human minds just love repetition, and I feel like they're really good at creating their songs around that, and they basically know how to make a highly repetitive song feel outstanding. Like, just the groove here is undeniable. Such a high for me. Do you have any opinion? Because I think it grew on me, but just like, Fast Thoughts.
Bruce Lee?
Yeah.
That was one that really did stick out to me, partly because I think lyrically and vocally it's doing something that the other tracks aren't doing. It's a very, high energy song.
Yeah, definitely an Underworld song.
Yes, yeah. It was super aggressive, and there was something that was kind of making me chuckle about it.
Yeah, it is funny. Yeah, you're right. There is rapping on it, and it's like about Bruce Lee. It's funny. It's random.
Yeah,
but it is kind of awesome.
I don't know what that has to do with cum, but probably.
Well, you shouldn't think about that. I'm sure that could work. Yeah. There could be something there.
I have to ask them.
So, Jumbo, I think that this song is not only my favorite song on the record, but also my favorite Underworld song. I think it gets better every time I hear it. It does make me feel intoxicated in a similar way, but it is more of like a gentle, reflective high than a body high, I guess. It's like more mind than body.
It's a sativa.
Dude, we should have just centered this around like different kinds of drugs. Like, so this one's ketamine.
This song is cocaine.
Yeah, for me that's Moner. But again, I've never done coke, so I don't know.
And then
the problem is I haven't done hard drugs, so I can't.
Skim is black tar heroin.
Yeah. I think that the synth pads on this song are just so dizzying and enchanting.
On Jumbo?
Yeah. I think they make me feel like just all the most beautiful moments in my life are blending into one and just becoming this vapor that is getting me high and just making me feel like I'm experiencing all of time at once. Like, there's something very nostalgic about it.
That's awesome, dude.
Thanks, bro. No, but there is something really powerful about it in that sense. And I think that Carl Hyde's vocals in this song being really gentle and kind of quiet in the mix makes a lot of sense. While I'm listening to this, I kind of put him into the role of someone who's just been taken over by the power of that and is feeling small and modest while he's just experiencing something so much bigger than himself.
It's like an
in
ego
a way.
death.
Hey. No, I mean, I think it's more like you feel like everything's so important and meaningful for me. That's like how I emotionally respond to it. I don't know.
This song's mushrooms.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, this is super subjective shit, right? But I think that's as accurate as I can get to my spiritual experience with it. I'll say The Night Wants Me Like a Little Lost Child is such a good fucking line. I don't know what you would get out of that, but in my mind, in this context, the night probably symbolizes something like freedom or solitude or, you know, obviously drugs or nightlife, just darkness in general, like something rebellious or selfish or something like that. Just things that would make someone feel unattached and reckless. And I love how the night is the subject of the sentence. Like, all of that wants him instead of him wanting it. It wants him desperately, just like this child. But the night is what needs to get his shit together, like not him. Like, he's not the one.
Night, yeah. you gotta get your shit together. Night.
Night, we talked about
I don't want to see you darkening my doorstep anymore.
Yeah,
I already gave you all my money.
Yeah. Oh my god.
You just can't help some nights.
Yeah. The night made me have a one-night stand with this girl. No, really though, I really think it's interesting. I think you can pull different things away from that. I do love the line, "The dark on the other side of the locked door." Like, that kind of contributes to the way I feel about it being this freedom sort of thing. Like, to me, that's whatever's on the other side of everything you've built thus far in your life. Like, what if you just broke it all down? Like, what's on the other side of that?
Yeah. It's kind of scary, honestly. Like the idea of that. And maybe, I don't know how he means it necessarily, but there is, I think that he is, I don't know, there's some kind of very overwhelming power in the night that I think he's trying to describe. Yeah.
I love it a lot. All right, Skim. I have thoughts on Skim. Do you want to start this off, or?
The thing that you're gonna look at me so weird when I say this, but when I was listening to that song, I was like, you know what this sounds like? This sounds like a deconstructed Smiths song.
Again, this, like, what?
It's maybe it's just, I don't know, like British baritone. There's something a little Smithsy in the melodies to me, and there's this sort of, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken, but there seemed to be a sense of sort of yearning or desperation in the lyrics, and but I say deconstructed because there's no drums. It's just like very pillowy synths, and you know, it's got no real rhythm to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's a really weird and abrupt dip in the energy of this record, starting with Whinger, and then there's Skim, and then I can't remember what song is after that, but I think it's one of the bangers. Like, it's really abrupt and weird how that happens. I do find it kind of eerie in a way that is just, like, there. I don't know, maybe I'm just making shit up. But yeah, I do think the song is interesting. This is after Whinger. Whinger is kind of, I mean, I'll get into it after this more, but I think it is just, like, subtle, a little more still, a little more consistent, mostly just, like, continuous cycling. It's, like, more of a gentle, somber moment, and then Skim is just, like, everything's just gone. and it's like wasteland, desert. It's cold. Yeah. There's nothing there. And I feel like because there's that echo around the vocals, it feels more vast and empty.
It's cavernous.
Yeah.
It's abyssal.
Yeah. And one sort of dimension of the song that I like is a few of the lyrics. Like, I think it's about a failed relationship, because you have lines like, I don't want you to call again, I couldn't go through this again.
Yeah.
It might not be his relationship, it could be someone else's, because one line that confuses me is, you say you love her, you never want to be without her. So I'm like, is this like you or something? But it does feel very done, and it feels sobering, and it's like, wow, you're really not the person that I thought you were.
Sure.
That sort of thing. I also love the line, do you still feed the animal? Because to me, I don't know.
That could mean a lot of things.
That could mean a lot of things, but what I pretty distinctly get from it is, do you still feed your carnal desires? Could be sexual, or it could just be like a human instinct for love, like that desperation that we all have.
It could be drugs also.
Could be drugs. Yeah, I mean, it's despondent. It feels like the narrator's defenses have just fallen completely on this track. I like it for what it is, I'll say that.
It's honestly like, it was kind of a highlight for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't have expected that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it just really took me by surprise. I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have expected it from them. You know, every single song on this album is so groove centric, and it's the complete opposite of like so much of what's going on the album.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels very deliberate.
Yeah.
And that resonates with me emotionally. I think it's a cool moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now I have more like abstract bullshit about Winger
Right.
that may or may not make sense.
Yeah. The lyrics on Winger kind of crack me up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because just I like the word whinging. You know.
Yeah. Well.
I think that's a funny British word.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, I think so. Winter means complainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a line, everything looks miserable when you're the whinger. But, no, I actually found it kind of eerie because the rest of the song is so drugged out, and it's like he's saying, like, hey, just make the most of life. But then his way of making the most of life is just, like, making everything perfect with, like, ketamine, and then just, like, letting complete destruction follow in the next instant. You know what I mean?
It's worth a try.
And it does have some really beautiful, idyllic imagery, like sunshine and warm grass around you, and, like, you look happy now, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does kind of feel like the narrator is a little bit in denial of how he would actually feel sober, and just taking the more reckless path to happiness and acting like it's simple, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of it's a bit of a dark album.
Yeah,
honestly.
it is. It is. And you know I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is, like, quite a lot of nuance to this album, honestly.
Yeah, that's sort of what, you know, with repeat listens, that's I was drawing more and more out of it, especially after, because, like, a lot of the, you know, there's a lot of effects on the vocals a lot of the time, so, like, diving into what they were actually saying, I was like, oh wow, okay, it's more than meets the eye.
Did you get anything out of Winger, like, production wise, instrumentally, whatever? Because I'm surprised that I get anything out of it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
You're surprised?
Yeah, because I feel like on paper it's really not that interesting.
See, to me, I sort of get a very similar thing out of most of the tracks, because it's, you know, I mean, it's all, and again, it's just my ignorance of the genre, but it all sounds like house music to me, so... Mm-hmm.
Well, it's so much more subtle and spacious and reflective. Like, it's so focused around just loops and continuous cycling, and there's not much progression at all, and it's so low key. Yeah, I mean, the drums just sound like little flickers and ticks and like trotting sounds and stuff like that. Like, they're not very pronounced and aggressive like, you know, the others are. But yeah, I think because it's so focused around just continuous cycling movement, you could think like, oh, that would get boring. Like, on paper, that's what it seems like. But I feel like when I'm locked into just those same sounds over and over again, like, I stop expecting qualitative change, and these things just become like a quantity. Like, they're just, like, you count them in a way, like, okay, another one, whatever. They're just like units. They just keep going. And to me, that's like, it feels like being aware of time passing in a way. To me, like, this song actually feels really profoundly sad. Because it feels like I'm noticing, so like, okay, this is what I mean about abstract descriptions I do. It makes me feel like I can like see or feel time passing, and the seconds or frames of my life are just disappearing into nothing, just vanishing, and I can feel them becoming part of the past, just complete negation, nothing. And it makes me notice how tragic the fact that everything is so fleeting is. And I should say, I think one of the things that makes this song feel so weird to me and makes me feel like half conscious when I'm listening to it is just how those looped vocoder vocals feel. Like, they're so eerie and ghostly, and it's just like, you know, everything's vanishing into this wisp, and, you know, it's falling from your grip and you can never get it back. And it does make me feel kind of out of my body. Like, I can see it happening, and I'm just noticing it more than I should. Yeah, I really like that song. Again, surprised that I get such a strong reaction from it. I think that's, again, something that happened with repeat listens, but yeah, sounds super ear to me. In terms of, you know, individual songs, that's about it. Do you have anything else you definitely want to bring up?
I will say that I liked this album. I think I would need to spend more time with it to like really begin to appreciate it, like even close to the level that you have, because you thought quite a bit about it. And I think I probably just need to become more familiar with electronic music in general. But I didn't have too many problems with it. It just, I think that it, you know, what I perceived as its goal, I think it accomplished pretty well, and it had some surprises, and I was into it.
Yeah, sweet. I mean, I basically feel the same way. I do think that it's a strength of this album that with repeat listens, you do draw more and more out of it. You know, I don't think Underworld makes thinking man's music by any by any stretch of that phrase, but
well, they're British, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, British people don't make intellectual
They don't have thoughts.
music, you know. They're
Oh
thinking
God!
about tea.
See, I think you should only say this to people who you know will know you're joking, Harrison.
Oh, you're worried that I'll be canceled for being racist against British people? Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, are we ready for the review?
Let's dive into Brent's musings on our British pals.
All right.
And Amy will be reading this.
All right, let's go. So I'm going to read this one. All right. Last month, I visited Venice. Now, I already have something to say. What is it with Brent and just bringing up arbitrary things that have happened to him?
He's
and
always talking about going to Italy.
And making them relevant to the situation, like he really just wants to talk about his life, man.
Yeah.
Like, really
He's such an interesting guy. You know?
Yeah. God. Alright. Along one of the main canals of the Dorsoduro, I don't know.
Dorsoduro.
Yeah, that. The southern the southern peninsula of the city, I discovered a building defaced in green graffiti. It read, "Don't believe the hype." Something in the combination of the innocence of an Italian's misspelled English and the cosmopolitanism of punk cliches made me chuckle.
Yeah, we should say that hype is spelled H-I-P-E.
Yeah. Not in the review itself, but he's saying that the graffiti said that.
Yeah.
But we'll get to the misspellings later.
Sure.
That actually do show up.
Yeah.
God.
It's hard. It's hard to believe that this website had editors.
Yeah. I don't think that they edited this, man.
No.
Yeah. It's actually insane if you think about it for too long. But after listening to the over-anticipated third album from Underworld, I want to hunt down the mysterious Venetian riff-raff author of this scribble. I picture him in a beret, scarf, and JNCO pants. Jinko pants.
Jinko pants. Why? That's such a weird combination of clothing.
Yeah. Actually.
Was that the style at the time?
Maybe you made it up. I don't know. Anyway, I picture him in a beret, scarf, and Jinko pants and kiss him, for he is brilliant. You see, you shouldn't believe the hype, and furthermore, don't believe the hip. Alright. I love how he saw this and he was like, you know what, that's about Underworld. I also feel that way about this album that I listened to for this Pitchfork review. Let me include it.
Yeah, he pulled his little notebook out of his back pocket and he was like, hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cringe.
It's a little cringe. You know, Brent is a storyteller.
Yeah. Natural born storyteller.
He is a storyteller, and quite frankly, Pitchfork just doesn't employ storytellers anymore.
That's true.
It's such a shame.
It's one of the biggest tragedies of our generation, I would say.
And if they do tell stories, they're like giving background information on like the actual artists who made the album, and not just like like, here's where I ate lunch last week. Here's how many times I went to the bathroom.
No, oh my god, I ate lunch in Italy last week and the food was subpar, and that reminded me of this album that I listened to, which was also subpar. You know, I want to thank the chefs there for their geniuses.
They really opened my eyes to how mediocre things can be. By the way, and we should mention this, the score on this album is what, 6.8?
Yeah.
This is a like 5.3 review. Like this reads as like a 5.3.
Yeah.
6.8 is practically a 7.
I think that it's clear through the writing in this review that he really doesn't want to like it as much as he does. Like, it's like you can tell that he goes in with biases just about the groups in general. Like Modest Mouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
like he liked that album, but he was like, thanks to the genius producers that worked on this, they really made up for Isaac Brock's elementary songwriting, like something like that.
A lot of what he does when he reviews is he just like imagines the kind of person who would like this album and then gets mad at them.
Oh my god, that's so true. He does that so much on the Fragile review. Oh my god, we'll get to it, but holy shit, yeah, that's another thing he loves to do. God, and I think one thing you should never do when you're listening to an album is do that.
Yeah.
Like, you should never think about the stereotype of someone who would like this kind of music and think, I don't like that album because it's for the punks or like
it's
whatever.
Like unprofessional.
Yeah, it's really like not something you should do if you want to connect with music.
Right.
On any level. Like, you should realize that people aren't just stereotypes. Like, they're whole people. Like, I don't know. I could get into that, but oh god, yeah, it's bad. Alright, let's keep going. As far back as 1997, the hyperactive music press had been awaiting Underworld's follow-up to the brilliant Second Toughest in the Infants, or more specifically, the train-spotting epic, Born Slippy, released like a boogie board on the crest of the electronica wave. You know what? I will say, that is kind of what the song's like. It is really, like, silly and, like, quirky. It's yeah.
Boogie board.
It's a very unserious song.
That's funny.
But
that's the thing. He is kind of funny sometimes.
Yeah, and like sometimes it's like he almost is hitting on something, but the way that he words it is just so stupid.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of okay with that because it's a little tongue in cheek.
That's the fucking thing about, like, he makes fun of people for liking things, but then when he likes something, he's so embarrassing about it.
Yeah. Dude, that's so true. Holy shit. Like, you could make fun of that Radiohead guy who, like, thinks Radiohead is, like, the most intellectual band on Earth.
They're the most important band since you know who.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Finally, after settling on the ridiculous title Beaucoup Fish, Underworld have finally answered, and it shouldn't surprise anyone in today's age of shattered expectations that Beaucoup Fish is not as great as we'd hoped. But of course, what we had hoped for was the OK computer of electronic music. Lofty. The final product lies more like the Benz of house music. Okay.
Shut the fuck up about Radiohead.
Holy
We've read we're 6 of his reviews now, and I think Radiohead is mentioned in 4 of them.
I think it's 5.
Really?
I think he didn't mention it in Saint Anger. Wait, we haven't read 6. We've read 4, right? 4, and then this is the 5th.
This is the 5th.
Yeah, I think he mentioned them in 3.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, I don't know why I remember that. I'm too obsessed with this guy's output. But yeah, I think that this is not thinking man's music, like I said,
right.
And if you expected this to be the OK computer of electronic music, you are the problem.
Yeah. What does that even mean?
Yeah. It means every album should be like Radiohead.
Yeah, every album should be good, like Radiohead makes good songs. They should make music that's good like Radiohead, dude.
They should aspire to make one of Radiohead's albums. He should know if he wrote that boogie board sentence that Underworld are not that serious a band. Or
right.
Band, duo, whatever.
Yeah. Trio sometimes.
And, some of this album is just meant to be a little ridiculous, some of the lyrics and stuff. It's just part of their personality, bro. You just don't understand what they're going for, to be honest.
He's unless this music humbles him and crushes him like a grape, everything, even if he likes it, is, somehow beneath him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Kid A review is the only one that came across humble.
Yeah.
But it's funny because he is also the one that wrote that review, which isn't humble.
No.
Yeah. This guy is such a parody of himself. I can't believe he's real.
There's an ego on this man.
For sure. I think with every single review we've read of his, that has come out very clearly.
And he was your age when he wrote this.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about it. Yeah. This would be excusable maybe if he was 15.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah. He writes like a 15-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really funny. I can't imagine what happened from the day he was born to 25, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah. Well, presumably normal things happened to him from the day he was born to 15, and then nothing happened after that.
Yeah. Yeah, he just hibernated. I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but...
He's like Encino Man.
Yeah.
He woke up from a 10-year cryo sleep and started writing for Pitchfork.
Yeah, it's crazy. But again, I'm sure it got them traffic. Maybe he's doing it on purpose.
He definitely was I've read about him, and he was like the golden boy,
Yeah, you said that.
And he drove traffic to that website, and good for him, because now Pitchfork is what it is today because of him.
Yeah,
make of that sentence what you will.
He formed their reputation.
Yes.
God, who knows where the Radiohead fanboy cliche came from, but I don't think that this did much to shut it down.
This more than likely created it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah. My legs and ass must admit that Underworld can make me dance. Anyone who knows me realizes the grand scale of this accomplishment. I have the rhythm of a poodle on his hind legs begging for a milk bone. At least he can admit he's not like God.
He's got a little self-awareness. He's like, by the way, I'm not a very funky white boy.
Yeah, but I think he's doing it in a way that's like he wants people to be like, ha ha ha. He knows he's just a pretentious, intellectual, like music nerd guy who knows everything about music. He's not a Chad.
He's qualifying his criticisms with like mildly sincere self-deprecation.
Yeah, totally. Couldn't have said it better myself. I think this review is kind of funny so far. I don't think the writing is terrible. Not in the same way it is in the Kid A review.
It's not one of his worst ones. I just don't really agree with what he's saying.
Yeah, and I think it still shows his personality in a really unflattering way. Obviously. Because he can't avoid that.
No.
It's just so strong. Like, he cannot edit that shit out.
No.
I don't know if he does any self-reflection. Like, he definitely doesn't proofread his own shit. Anyway. Jungle Junkie is looking for seizure beats and caffeinated tempos. Look elsewhere. Go pick up some Autek or Square Pusher. This is funny because I actually think that seizure beats would be a great way to describe this album. And there are like break beats and shit on it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Fucking go listen to the other like 2 existing 90s electronic groups. Nerd.
Fucking piece of shit.
But do listen to Autek, even though they sound nothing like Underworld at all whatsoever, because they're amazing.
They kind of sound like a seizure.
Yeah, in a way, but a seizure in like a factory with metallic clanking noises and shit. But anyway.
It's my favorite kind.
Yeah. Beaucoup, God, that's so hard to say.
Beaucoup?
Beaucoup Fish's thump comes direct and in repetition. A 50-50 mix of ambient symphonies and thudding digital funk with a splash of rock and roll.
Symphonies?
I know. Actually, Beaucoup Fish succeeds most when miming rock. Miming rock?
Memeing rock?
Like M-I-M-I-N-G.
Miming, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Miming rock. Push upstairs, built on a pounding piano loop, could be a Girls Against Boys number if GVSB completely got rid of stringed instruments.
He's like,
I don't know about that. Girls Against Boys, like...
He's doing this some like Dennis Miller routine right now. He's just like...
Fuck.
Oh my god, he's so smug, dude.
I know. A pal o' mine complains that, yes, it is written like that. A pal o' mine complains that Bruce Lee sounds like the opening to a Thriller era Michael Jackson tune. Well, yeah, that's why it's cool.
Nice.
Oh god. Unlike other techno groups, Underworld relies heavily on vocals. I don't think that's true, but whatever. And a vocoder effect. Lots of vocoder effect. Although the vocoder might just be covering up some downright silly lyrics. Underworld loves to chant a pastiche of commercial slogans, colors, consumer vocabulary, and whatever words they just think sound cool. Sometimes this works, and when it doesn't, you're stuck with lines like King of Snake, King of Snake, King of Snake, King of Snake. I'm not positive, but the lyrics for Bruce Lee might be built on the repetition of life is juice from a box, Bruce Lee. Hey, I love that lyric. Like, it is. I think that's profound.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Underworld, being artists and designers, might try to label this a postmodern commentary on the accursed share of capitalist dogma. Don't believe the hype. I hate this so much. Like, no, they're obviously not. Like, well, I think he's getting it, like, okay, if I'm overthinking it, like, why juice from a box? You know, like, box juice. Like, the juice you buy at the store.
Yeah,
like,
the juice box.
Yeah,
like
the juice box you buy. And then your money goes back into the capitalism machine.
Yeah.
And then And then you get paid that money, and then you spend that money, and
whoa, it's like, what?
It's just like, I don't know, like, obviously they're not thinking about it, and they're not a pretentious group. I think they know that they're spitting nonsense.
No, they're
like,
pretty unpretentious.
Yeah. Yeah, again, like, that's one of the things I kind of love about them. Like, they're not giving a fuck mentality is a little endearing. Like, I respect it. But yeah, all of this just sucks. Like, that paragraph just fucking is so stupid. Like, that's a stupid ass way to consume the lyrics on this record, I think.
Yeah. He doesn't care to extrapolate too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that for him, that's something that he has to decide to do, and a lot of times he just decides not to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I think he goes into every album wanting it to be exactly the kind of music that he would be into, and just, like, does not try to, like, have an open mind at all whatsoever. It's just he really wants shit to just fit into a box, and then he tries to make it, like, the album's fault when it doesn't. Like, this album is objectively stupid because it's not intellectual and deep.
Yeah. People like that should make music.
Yeah.
I don't think they should
That's
write about
so
it.
true, yeah, actually. Yeah. Definitely. The pretentious guys, just shut up, don't write reviews,
Yeah.
put your talents into actual music.
Start making beats.
Yeah. God.
Make me the music that you want to listen to, and then show it to me, and I'll tell you if it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, in order to be a good critic, I think you just need to question yourself a lot and try to see things from other perspectives and be skeptical of, you know, your immediate responses to things. Like, I think that's a lot of it.
Be aware of your own shortcomings as a consumer of art.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Beaucoup fish has no meaning in daylight and sobriety. Underworld have crafted a deeply agoraphobic record that demands the ambience of neon-lit city streets, the backseat of a boxy Japanese import, or the flesh-pressed dance floor of a clubs,
Oh, so
plural.
it's a dance album?
Yeah, dance floor of a clubs with names like Fuse, Fix, Flux, Fax, and Flick. It is so hard to read these fucking reviews. Like,
it's like Sondheim.
that's why I keep stuttering, because these sentences are insane. Beaucoup Fish is a record for quantum body activity. Either let your body completely relax or completely move. As shallow as it sounds, Underworld are just sound cool and sexy. Underworld are just sound cool and sexy.
They should put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. Again, no editor, like, that's a second typo in the same paragraph. They're as inexplicably addictive as fashion and just as inexplicably disposable. But isn't that what makes us like them? So you almost, like, understood the point of the record, but, like, not...
Yeah.
Like, not enough to actually, like, review it charitably.
Maybe, because I get the sense that a lot of times, like, scores on albums will be, like, an aggregate of the entire staff's scores. You know,
Yeah.
they take them all and average them.
That's true. I don't know how they did it back then, but probably they did it like that, honestly.
Maybe he wrote the review, and then when he got the score... He threw that last sentence on to try and justify the score.
Yeah, wow. He was like, oh, fuck, my colleagues like this.
Oh, God.
Oh, God, my coworkers.
Yeah, you know that his score was just bringing the whole fucking average down.
Yeah,
so
totally.
much.
Like, everyone else gave it, like, a 9. Like, that's really funny. Yeah. I think this reads as, like, a 5 out of 10. I would say so, because he complimented, like, Bruce Lee, kind of.
Yeah. Maybe like a 5.5.
Yeah, I would say about the same.
Yeah.
Like, maybe a 6. I could kind of see it.
Maybe.
He just feels very, like, conflicted about his opinions. It's very hard to come away from this review knowing how he felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very scatterbrained and incoherent, if I'm being honest. So
a lot of times his reviews sound like he typed them out like in a rage really fast.
Yeah. In a tantrum.
Yes.
In a fucking meltdown. Music nerd meltdown.
Yeah. Hence the typos.
Yeah, he was just typing too fast to go back.
Yeah.
He had more thoughts he wanted to get out, so... Yeah, what do you think out of 10 for his review?
I'd give it what the score on this review should have been. I think it's a 5.3.
Yeah, I would say like 4 to a 4.5 myself. Because there's some, like, when he's describing some of the songs, I'm like, okay, so you comprehended, like, you understood the assignment. You just didn't. You just didn't do a very good job. Yeah, it's like at least you listened to this album. Like, it didn't seem like he listened to The Moon in Antarctica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to know like what the fuck he is getting at. Ever. But especially here, because it's like, dude, he's like he didn't even make up his mind about this album.
Yeah. I will say one thing it does have going for it is it's probably the shortest review of his that we've read so far. It's like albums that are horrible, but they're really short.
Yes. If there's one like, nice thing we can say.
Yeah.
It was only like 4 paragraphs.
Because listening to super long albums that just like Scorpion by Drake, the first thing that comes to my mind. It's not even bad in an interesting way, and it's so long.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just records like that.